Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer, food maker, or artisan selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast.
I'm Kat Fields-White.
And I'm Bridget Myers. We're longtime farmers market managers, educators, and consultants. Get ready to catch up on all things farmers market pros with us. Welcome to a new season of Tent Talk. We're talking today and in upcoming episodes about telling our stories and sharing what farmers, food makers, managers, and shoppers need to know about farmers markets. Stay tuned for riveting tales from the tents.
I love tales from the tents. I mean, we could go so far with that. Today's episode of Tent Talk is supported by Manage My Market, an online platform assisting markets in more than 30 states with vendor registration, stall assignments, and interactive map creation, invoicing, permit tracking, and more. Manage My Market reports can help simplify your accounting, make reconciliation easier, and give you better visibility into vendor payments, token redemption, vendor credits, and market activity. For more information on how to consolidate all your market management tasks in one place and a free demo, click the Manage My Market logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
All right, welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. We do remember how to do this, right?
That's the thing about breaking this into seasons. I mean, it does give us some relief because we're doing a lot of other things.
Yep.
Farmers Market Forum and not producing a conference and all the other things that we are doing. But yeah, then we get a little rusty in between.
You get rusty in between, but I will say we had a nice tech morning, so very excited about that. That's a good omen, I think, for this season.
That is.
Started off on the right tech foot. What more you can ask for?
Well, you know, you and I both work mostly with year-round farmers markets, but this must be how farmers market managers with seasonal markets feel, right?
Yeah.
Do y'all? Let us know. Drop a line in the comments. What happens when you come back, when you've taken a break between seasons? Is it like, wait, how do we do this? How do we evaluate an application, and how the heck do we build a map?
That's right. But then it's like muscle memory and it all comes back to you.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's kind of how I'm feeling too. So we're really excited to be back. Love Tent Talking. Appreciate our loyal listeners for bearing with our change from every single week, every single year that we've done this to breaking into seasons. It's been giving us some space to kind of be more thoughtful about designing our seasons. And I'm really excited about this one. We've been talking about it for a long time and had a great meeting and have some great guests line up. And we're just really excited. So we're excited to be back with a new season focused on telling our stories. We'll be talking with farmers, food makers, and managers about their farmers market stories this season and discussing how we can work together to be sure we share the stories that shoppers need to know too. We all know that a lot of folks have no idea that farmers markets don't just happen.
They certainly do not.
Slogan of my life. So let's change that. And starting now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Farmers markets are actually a hot topic right now, and lots of people are talking about them.
They sure are. I feel like it kind of ebbs and flows, people just completely not ignoring or forgetting, but just kind of farmers markets in the background. And then all of a sudden it just pops up in the news, on social media, in conversation. And people are all of a sudden pretending farmers markets are some new thing and they all have opinions.
They all have opinions. Yeah. Lots of people are talking, but not necessarily accurately.
Yep.
You know, I vacillate. I go back and forth between, am I mad that nobody's talking about farmers markets? Or am I mad that somebody's talking about farmers markets and telling lies? or just not understanding how they work and then making assumptions, or seeing one market that's maybe, I don't want to say bad actor, but just not exactly doing what the goal of a farmer's market is to do, and then going, oh, all farmers markets do this. All farmers markets are, just pretending to sell things. And somebody said today on some thread that I saw that was mostly positive, actually, but some guy said, all those folks are just cosplaying farmers. It's like,
oh my gosh.
No, they're not.
They just have outfits in their trailer, overalls in their trailer on the back lot.
That's right. They just jump in and just pretend.
Boy.
So we need to be sure that we're contributing to the narrative with true stories of what we do, how we do it, and what people should expect from us and our farmers.
Yeah, and it's really helpful to just educate yourself and your staff as farmers market operators, vendors, and farmers that are a part of farmers markets, also learning more about really how farmers markets operate so that you can also speak to, accurately about farmers markets when you're in conversation and things like that. I think if we all get on that same page, we can really tell this accurate story and paint an accurate picture of what farmers markets are, how they're different, how they're the same, and just get those things out there to kind of combat people who are very sure of themselves that all farmers markets operate in the same way in some way, which is just not true. You can't blanket all of them, just like many industries.
Exactly. I mean, there's what, 8,000 some farmers markets in the US alone. Certainly, those are not all operating in the same way.
Certainly, we know for a fact.
And there's no real finite definition. World Farmers Market Coalition has a definition, Farmers Market Coalition has a definition. I have a definition.
You certainly do.
Some states have legal definitions of what a farmer's market is, but a lot of states don't.
Yep.
So there is no clear description of what constitutes a farmer's market. And, some big box stores have farmer's market written into their names, and those are splashed in gigantic letters across the front of those big corporate stores. So,
Exactly.
First thing we would need to do is develop an agreed upon definition of farmers markets, but we can't make everybody in the world agree on that. So we just need to keep telling our story of what we think farmers markets are.
Exactly. And I think if, what I know from talks we've had with farmers market operators all around the country and the world and being at the conference is that we all have the general like heart and soul of a farmers market does seem to be really the same with a lot of operators and folks that are doing farmers markets. And so just bringing the conversation back to that, like what is the heart of a farmers market? And then the details, they change at different markets, but just kind of making sure that society at large is reminded that this is the heart of farmers markets and the purpose of farmers markets. So,
I mean, we might even just want to keep responding to some of these things with a definition. Remember, when you say farmers market, if you're referring to a liquor store with that name in it, that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about farmers markets. We're talking about an event that happens on a consistent basis, whether that's seasonal or year round, happens all the time in a consistent location, and has farmers present on site selling directly to consumers.
Yep.
I mean, that's the basics, and we just need to keep reinforcing that.
Yeah.
So I will say, sometimes I'm frustrated because nobody's talking about farmers markets, and sometimes I'm frustrated because they're talking about them, but they're not getting it right. But there are a lot of people talking about farmers markets right now, and there's a number of reasons for that.
Definitely, I think like food chain disruption, which I think we saw a lot of conversation about farmers markets during COVID when food chain disruption was really, really significant. But now, just with other things that are disrupting food chains across the country and the world,
Tariffs,
tariff.
I mean, labor issues, as
Mhm.
we talk about immigration and looking at how we're deporting people that have worked in the food system.
Yep.
I mean, that's causing disruption in the corporate food system. And of course, for small farmers, honestly, but that's changing things. All of that's affecting us. And you're seeing some empty shelves at grocery stores.
Exactly. So I think people are again thinking about farmers markets because of those things when maybe they weren't thinking about them as regularly. So definitely food chain disruption brings farmers market conversations to the forefront. Rising grocery prices, like you said, with tariffs, weather, climate change, things like that, politics. Just at the commodity level, I think people are talking about grocery store prices a lot. Honestly, whether or not that's accurate, because of course, as we know, as just humans living in this world, possibly buying groceries at grocery stores, we do know that the prices are up. But are they as up as kind of like clickbait headlines are telling us? Yes or no? Depends on the part of the country that you're in, depends on the store that you're shopping at, all of those things. But just food conversation and grocery conversation is really kind of spiked, I feel like.
Yeah. And I mean, talk about an industry that you can't paint with a broad brush. There's great grocery stores, there's bad grocery stores. Consolidation has really had an effect. So there's only, we're down to a handful of gigantic grocery stores that control too much of the market. And yet there are still local grocery stores that are doing a great job. But that's their job to tell their accurate story. We're going to stick with farmers markets.
Exactly. Yes, but just as farmers markets are a grocery store, I think like our conversations are kind of tied together. So I think trying to not like sensationalize that part of it while we're telling our story helps ours like the integrity of farmers markets stories and explaining like the truth about farmers markets. I think that's helpful, but it's definitely in the conversation and we
I
can't
mean,
get
we
away
are
from it.
part of a greater, larger food system.
Exactly.
Farmers markets probably can't feed everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, if, realistically. So we need to be part of a greater food system that includes hopefully a lot of direct to consumer, farmer to consumer sort of production and selling, but also working with local grocery stores, working with food distribution groups to make sure that we're all working together to bring the healthiest food to people.
exactly. Like they say, fed is best. This like relates to any age.
I mean, a lot of folks right now are talking about farmers markets because of cyclosporiasis.
I'm not gonna try.
Shout out to our producer. You don't need to correct that one. It's not a flub. It's just that nobody knows how to pronounce it. I mean, I'm sorry. I did the best I could. But anyway, I will say I talked to a farmers market association director the other day, and she said, "Can we just say poop soup? Easier to spell, catchier." It's like, no, don't say poop soup. That's we're talking about food, and you just don't want to use those words while talking about what you're about to eat.
Yeah, no matter what, let's keep it not the toilet talk.
So
But
that
yeah,
cyclo terrible thing,
that parasite. Yeah.
right? We all
That,
know what we're talking about.
we all know what we're talking about. It definitely has brought conversations about food once again to really like a high, density. Every time you open your phone, there's, talk about food and where to get your food and why. And so, for good or bad, it has brought farmers market conversations forward.
Right. And I will say that shout out to all the farmers market operators that have come up with very clever ways to educate folks on the relative higher safety of knowing who grows your food.
Exactly.
They've done some really fun things
Hmm.
without saying poop soup often, and really let people know that it's generally safer to know who grows your food because you can talk to them about how they operate. I will say that we have talked, amongst ourselves in the sector too, about not just saying, hey, you absolutely will be safe buying at farmers markets. Food safety is a tricky, tricky thing.
Yeah.
And, farmers are subject to water runoff and this and that. But over the course of time, there have been virtually no big foodborne illness situations that are traced back to smaller farmers. For one thing, smaller farmers tend to have the farmer themselves in the field as opposed to a vast group of laborers that aren't necessarily supervised as they are in huge corporate farming. They generally, because they know the people working with them, they provide better conditions. So the workers are not forced to do things that would contaminate food. They are able to spot if there's runoff coming in that's not safe and provide the berms and things that make keep the food safe. So all of those things mean that small farms, just by the way they operate, tend to have safer food. The other thing, of course, is that you don't see huge foodborne illnesses traced back to smaller farmers because smaller farmers don't produce huge levels of food. So if you've got a system that's messed up, you're not affecting the entire country or the entire world with it.
Yeah, you're not supplying a chain restaurant with all of the lettuce, for instance. And
Exactly.
so it's easier to trace quicker and contain anything that's an issue way faster and bring it back. So just another reason. But like you said, it's not perfect. And I've seen, some farmers, like my farmers at my markets and some other farmers that I've just kind of seen on social media or their messaging or in their newsletters that I subscribe to across the country talking about the benefit of buying from small farmers because of those things you just talked about. And also that no farm is perfect. You can't control every single thing. There's animals, there's humans doing the work. It's like these things are just errors that happen sometimes, but to really reduce the risk, like way, way, way down, it's just so much better to know who's growing your food and to know their practices and to be able to have that shorter supply chain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's an unfortunate reason that everybody's talking about farmers markets, but hey, they're talking about farmers markets. Is it that, any press is good press kind of
Yeah.
theory?
Well, this is how I felt during COVID too. It was like farmers markets were so discussed during that time because it was like no one felt safe at the grocery store. We didn't know if our food chain supply was going to get disrupted. It was being disrupted, and people weren't able to go to their factory jobs or be in large groups at big organizations that, farmed and packaged farmed food. So as farmers markets really got a spike from that. So that's really on a much smaller scale, of course. This particular parasite has brought that same type of conversation
Yeah,
together.
because it's so widespread.
Yep.
Yeah, it's affecting so many people.
Yeah.
Maha,
Yes.
who, like many things, at its core is a good idea and has sometimes been distorted for political reasons, for reasons of people with loud voices that don't necessarily know the truth but sound very confident. So, I mean, there's some things that have come out of that movement that have been misinformation and have created some problems. But there's also some things within that movement where they've uncovered bad practices in terms of food processing and bad practices in terms of growing food and what kind of chemicals we put on our food in the US, especially. So that actually has led to more conversation about farmers markets and about buying locally.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't that conversation wasn't politicized like so many other things because really, like you said, at the heart of it, they're talking about, bringing food back to just eating unprocessed, local food, food that's good for your body, comes from the earth. Like that kind of conversation is good, but then there's all these like unnecessary layers that, some people like and some people don't like. And it distorts everything and it makes it hard for even when the message is good, if politically you disagree, then you shut that conversation out. It happens on all sides for various conversations. But yeah, that's an unfortunate part of that. But I think because people are talking about it, it does bring the farmers market conversation forward, which is
Sure.
great. Like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Grow your own food, buy your food locally, know your farmer. I mean, know who's feeding you,
Yeah.
really, at its core.
And eat whole foods. That's really
Right.
like that's the heart of a farmer's market, right? What we're selling. That's our business is whole foods. So
Yep.
bringing the conversation back there is not bad.
Absolutely.
Mhm,
So there's a good, big reason to tell our stories this
mhm.
particular month coming up. As you know, starting this Sunday, yes, folks, we have not prepared ourselves or you to be ready for this because it's right upon us. But National Farmers Market Week here in the U.S. And parts of Canada who have picked up the same week
Yeah.
um, starts on Sunday.
Starts on Sunday. I have seen some people are preparing and doing fun things. So really excited for them. One
It's
day,
coming.
one day on this podcast, we're going to say we did so much prep and we're ready and we're doing a bunch of great things. But, I'm letting it go. It's fine. We celebrate farmers markets year round. That's what I always say.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, every week is Farmers Market Week for us.
Yeah.
But National Farmers Market Week is a thing.
Yes,
And
it
it's
is.
Sunday, August 2nd to Saturday, August 8th. In our organization, we'll extend it to Saturday, August or Sunday, August 9th, because we like to see a nice full week.
Mhm.
Or start it on the 1st so that Saturday gets to pick up twice,
Yeah.
at the beginning and the end.
I need a petition to change that so that the full weekend is part of this week because
I
it just make a lot of sense. Well, we know who to write a letter to.
We do. We know who to talk to. Actually, there's a new person to talk to,
Yep.
Jamie Haji from Ohio, who, if you've attended the Intense conference, you've probably seen her on stage a few times, and you've certainly talked to her in the aisles or perhaps crashed the Ohio team's lobby charcuterie spread, the picnic of all picnics. Typically, when they come to the conference, when we go to the Tuesday Farmers Market, that's a common field trip within our agenda, they do aggressive shopping and they come back with a little bit of everything good from the farmers market that day. And they have a little camp out picnic in the lobby on a table and they lay out so much food. As usual at farmers markets, they end up buying more than they can actually eat. So passersby are often invited to join.
That was a wonderful thing to stumble upon after I had been at the shore club for most of the evening and just came back to the hotel and got to eat some cheese, some pickles, pita bread, sourdough. It was lovely. They were having a good time.
They were having a good time.
Hmm.
But we digress. We should be introducing Jamie at this moment as the relatively new president of the Farmers Market Coalition Board.
Very excited for her
Very excited for her.
and for us.
Very excited for us. She's on the board now. Amanda Shree from the Michigan Farmers Market Association is on the board. There's a couple of a handful actually, not just those two, but many really strong people on the board. Kendra from the Oregon Farmers Market Association. I think they brought a lot more state leaders onto the board this term. And I think that's going to be really effective in terms of making FMC understand exactly what their users need and providing it. So we talked to Jamie about National Farmers Market Week in 2026 here. And she let us know that FMC is excited to celebrate National Farmers Market Week with markets from across the country and the accomplishments of their operators and vendors and the contributions they make to communities everywhere. She said, we're also excited to celebrate our own 20th birthday. So Farmers Market Coalition is 20 years old this year. That's exciting. She did share with me, ironically, the birthday feels a little too true to form. You think you're an adult when you turn 20, you can do it all, and yet you're not even legal yet. Jamie is a funny woman. FMC is certainly legal, but they're also still finding their path. They're evolving in comparative terms. 20 years is not a really old big nonprofit organization, and they have morphed over the years to prioritize different things. So, as their organizational structure evolves and they weigh the best methods of sharing the resources that they've developed over 20 years and how to offer them to market operators, they're really doing good things this year. I'm really excited about the directions that they're going.
Yeah, same. I like the new energy and just, you know, using the tools that they've built up over the past 20 years and figuring out what is needed right now for the farmers market community and building on that to kind of provide us with new needs that have come up, and they have a new team and really excited to see what they do.
Yeah,
Yep.
very excited.
Yep.
Some of the old team's still there too.
Yes, that's right.
There's some Dar and Allen, and some of those folks have been around a long time, and that and the new team is really guiding them in a good direction.
I love that. And they have, of course, lots of resources. So, National Farmers Market Week resources, as usual, they have their toolkit, press release templates, and graphics. And you can find those at farmersmarketcoalition.org.
That's right.
Yep.
Click the Farmers Market Coalition logo on our resource page at Farmers Market Pros, or, type it in. You can find them. Not too hard. So, one of the things we've been discussing is how to react to inaccurate stories or to ones that we don't necessarily appreciate, but they do have an element of truth.
Yeah.
And we should sort of clarify what things that initially sound negative really mean. So, in terms of making comments on social media or producing our own content, but that addresses the things that a lot of people have seen on social media, it's tricky to figure that out. So Driscoll repackaging is a hot one right now on TikTok and now on Insta, actually, because many people like me see TikTok stories 3 weeks later on Insta, like grown-ups do.
And they make their way there.
That's
Same,
right.
same
They
thing.
get there. So there's a video on TikTok that somebody took where they're filming somebody who appears to be taking plastic clamshells of Driscoll berries and pouring them into the little fiberboard baskets that we often see at farmers markets.
Mhm.
And so the narrative on that is this is what happens at farmers markets. They just go buy berries at the store and they repackage them and they sell them.
Yeah.
Do we know what's true about that story? We do not, because it's not an investigative piece. It's just a film. It's just a video somebody took on their camera.
There's no other information. Yeah, it's just like a little clip. Our attention spans are microscopic. So it was just a little blip, and then someone with a big, loud opinion. So of course we just don't know like the story. There's no other information, right? So does that farmer sell to Driscoll? And
Yeah.
so they had their berries in Driscoll clamshells and they were using them at the market because they had to bring more.
Exactly. I mean, and that's a question because Driscoll doesn't grow berries.
Yeah.
Driscoll contracts with farmers to sell from seeds that Driscoll has patented for specific varieties of berries. I bet nobody knows that. Everybody thinks Driscoll has their own farms,
Yeah.
but they don't.
It's not
They
Driscoll
contract
Farm.
with other farmers.
Exactly.
Yeah. In fact, farmers are not legally allowed to sell Driscoll varieties of berries unless they're contracted with Driscoll because, okay, I'm not going to say this because Driscoll is suing an app that tells people where farmers markets are right now. So we're not going to imply that Driscoll has done anything wrong, but they do provide patented seeds.
And you can make your own
make your own
conclusions.
Have your own opinion about
Yeah.
whether seeds should be patented and people should be prohibited from selling.
Also a great conversation with lots of information that people don't think to investigate before they just jump to a conclusion. So
right. So they're making a lot of assumptions there. A lot of farmers and a lot of consumers, including myself, save containers. And so it's difficult to transport berries in little fiberboard boxes.
Yeah, because it gets mushed.
I think a lot of folks just put them in like a huge plastic bag but that kind of mushes them up if it gets too heavy. So it's possible those containers were being reused for transport.
Sure.
Yeah. It's also possible that, as folks have jumped to as a conclusion, that person actually was buying wholesale and reselling. But I will say it's not a financially sound practice to buy Driscoll berries to resell. If you want to buy berries and resell them, you can get a lot cheaper berries than Driscoll.
No kidding. Like Driscoll's retail prices are not bottom prices. They're not the lowest. So to buy Driscoll in those little containers and then resell them, I mean, the margins on that, the profit margin would be nominal. That doesn't really like make sense from like a numbers standpoint. So also just curious if that person is doing that, why? And to like, and then that's just like, should be alerting us to like, oh, there should be more to this story. Because if you think about it like that, why are you reselling something that's already like a high price at the grocery store? So, anyways, there's that. But also, like, should we maybe talk about that some markets across the country, they do allow resale? That is
That's
part
right.
of the market rules. I mean, I know that, and way back in California too, you had your certified farmers market section with all of your local, they had to be California farmers. And then on the other side of the street, which a lot of consumers don't realize is a different event, but farmers market operators were legally allowed to have folks that were reselling. They could get produce from somewhere else and they could resell it, like just as a broker, as a vendor. So that law is, way past outlawed. So we're not allowed to do that anymore in this state. But I know across the country, like you are allowed to do that.
Many places.
So they're not, I mean, unless they have a sign that says we grew these strawberries on our farm and there's someone standing in a farmer's market cosplay or farmer's cosplay outfit saying, I'm the farmer. I mean, that is a deliberate, you know,
That's
lie.
deceptive. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, nobody wants to go that direction.
exactly. But is that happening? I don't think so. I think if that was happening, we would see a lot more like stories coming out about that. I mean, there is just a thing where it's like, yes, this is a farmer's market. We have either some farmers and some resellers, or it's a market where people are reselling produce. You can come get your produce, you come get your other vendor goods. I mean, there are markets that are just legally operating like that, and that is just how they are. And they're not lying, and they're not being deceptive about things, and you just go so you can buy your produce outside and then you can get your baked goods and you can get your flowers and things like that at the market. So what market was this? Like what state was it in?
Well, I saw comments on a thread actually this morning, and it's because so many people have reposted this thread on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
And somebody said, oh, I hear this is a market in Virginia. And someone said, which market? And then another 12 people said, which market? And nobody could answer.
Yeah.
Somebody referred them back to the original TikTok poster who has now made her account private where you can't see anything about her or you can't message her to ask, okay, if this is a Virginia market, which Virginia market? Somebody in that same thread said, oh, well, then you can report them to the Virginia Department of Agriculture. Well, no, you really can't because the Department of Agriculture in Virginia doesn't say it's illegal to sell anybody's berries at a farmer's market. You're allowed to host resellers there. It would be deceptive if the signage says we grew this.
Yes.
And somebody was saying, well, certainly they wouldn't allow them to take Driscoll's berries and sell them as though they're at a farmer's market. Well, it depends on what their signage says and what the rules are at that market. It's not necessarily illegal. Is it nice? Is it probably implying something that's not true if, in fact, they were using Driscoll berries there and selling them as though they grew them? No, it's not nice. It's not cool. It ruins it for all of us
Yeah.
because you're making people distrustful, but it's not illegal
Yeah.
unless you're in California, in which
In
case it is
California,
illegal.
there is a yeah, you could call somebody and they will get in big trouble, and so will all of us. So
Yeah.
yeah, it just depends where they are. And then that's the other thing too, is just people posting that stuff and they're like, oh my God, they're reselling. Buy private account. It's like,
Yeah.
come on. That's just like the integrity of farmers markets are counting on people reporting things that are actually happening that are bad, or not just saying something off the cuff and you don't know what you're talking about and then buy and then it's going viral. And because it just kind of creates this distrust for everybody when most farmers markets are acting with integrity and doing a good job doing what we're supposed to be doing. I mean, if you're in California, if you're in San Diego County, I can speak from personal experience. You're not getting away with reselling things.
No.
We're getting inspected. People are out at the farms. I mean, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of market managers that have eyes on this. It's just like, but the integrity is high. And so when people imply that our farmers could be doing something like this, that's like really hurtful. Not only hurts our feelings, but hurts the business of the farmers. And why would you want to do that? Like you want small farms to go out of business so we can all eat Taylor Farms lettuce?
Yeah.
Is that what you want? Like,
Don't do it.
don't do it. I mean, let's think about our actions, people online.
For sure. I will say that there are a fair amount of people that jump into those kind of threads with positive responses.
Yeah.
And they post pictures of their market haul and they say, I was just at my farmer's market and I definitely know that the guy I buy from is a farmer. I've done a farm tour.
Mhm.
I know the farmer's market manager, and that team of farmer's market managers goes out and tours all the farms and they verify that the producers are really producers. So, I mean, a lot of people love farmers markets and they will jump in to defend us. But also, part of that narrative needs to be what is the truth about how markets operate. I will say what we need to do as a sector is keep transparency top of mind because it's failed expectations that
Yeah.
sets people off. So if you're a producer only market, say so. and also verify that the folks who are saying they're producers that are at your market are really producers. We're lucky in California. It doesn't always feel lucky, I will tell you, when we're dealing with some inspectors, but we are lucky that we have a robust Department of Food and Agriculture that has very strict rules about farmers markets, and they have inspectors that go to the farms and they send us certificates that verify that the farmers are growing what they're selling.
Yeah.
And that's checked and rechecked and rechecked. And so, as I say, sometimes it's a bit much paperwork wise, but it's helpful to us. And it's a lot in terms of bandwidth for smaller farmers markets in particular to have to go out to each farm to verify that somebody that says they're growing what they sell is in fact growing what they sell, but it's important. So whether you put a volunteer team together or you ask for help from some related group in the food system that might be interested in helping you pursue this, it's really important that you verify that you're only hosting producers if you say you're only hosting producers. And if you're not, if you're allowing resale, and we see a lot of great markets that have people who are growing, they have farmers they're selling, and then they also have people reselling produce that they buy, hopefully from a produce terminal where they're dealing more directly with other farmers that just aren't coming to the farmers markets. But in any case, they're allowing resale. I personally think the best markets that do that are allowing resale of products that local growers are not producing. And so you'll see some justification for that. We've even had farmers that have told us, yeah, I wish somebody was reselling bananas here because that would keep people from leaving here, going to a grocery store and maybe buying what I grow from that grocery store because they only have time for one stop on their grocery shopping list.
Mhm.
So I see reasons for it. We've never really been involved with resale produce, but I see reasons why you would do that. But I think the really important thing, if you're doing that, is to be incredibly transparent. You
Mhm.
should have very clear signage to identify who's a farmer and who's reselling produce. If you allow resale and you don't check on your producers to know which they're doing and you don't distinguish between farmers and resellers, maybe don't call it a farmer's market. If you're not going to give people a hint about whether the people they're buying from are actually the farmers, don't call it that. Call it a community market. There's a lot of validity to community markets where people come to sell things and you build small businesses and you host bakers that are baking, but don't call it a farmer's market if farmers are not there and they're not identified.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of important thing to remember is the verbiage that you're using and kind of what you're trying to convey to shoppers because farmers markets, as much as we're saying we need to kind of re-educate everybody on what that is, people do, I think a lot of people have in mind that a farmer's market is where farmers are. And so if that's not happening at your market, yeah, call it a community market, even like a produce market. I
Sure.
mean, just farmers market.
Fresh food market.
Yeah,
There's a lot of words you could use that don't imply that everybody you're buying from is a farmer.
exactly. So kind of just keeping the truth of it at the center and don't treat your customers like they're stupid. I mean, I think that it's just insulting when people try to pass off things as farmers markets when they're not. It's like, let's give our shoppers a little bit more respect than that and let's be transparent. Let's tell them what's going on. They, first of all, deserve to know the truth of what's happening. Second of all, they're smart enough to like figure it out and they're smart enough to be educated about this. We've had, conversation over the many years with a lot of shoppers and they're smarter than you think, so why would we be trying to, like, trick them into something where if you just say it's a produce market, like, I'm a farmer's market lover, I get as much of my stuff as farmer's markets as possible. I'm also a very busy mother of 3, like, sometimes I gotta go to a produce market, and I gotta buy bananas, and I gotta buy bell peppers out of season, and things like that, so it's like, don't treat me like I'm stupid, I just need to get some groceries, like, where did this come from? Just tell me, and just be truthful about it. So I think that's really, like, the root of all of these things that come up is just tell people where it's coming from so that they know and then they can make their own choices about it. It doesn't mean they're not going to buy it. It doesn't mean they're not going to come to your community market or they're not going to come to your produce market. Just tell them the truth of what's happening there. And farmers markets really educate folks like these are the farmers, these are the people that are growing this. This is where it's grown. And this is why we're selling it here and just giving them all that information.
Yeah, it's so important. It's all about letting the consumer make an informed choice.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do buy produce other places,
Yeah.
and you get produce that we just don't grow here. You'll buy that at hopefully a community grocery store or what have you. And I'm going to try to not judge if you're buying your produce through Amazon. Honestly, I would like people to eat more produce no matter where they get it.
I have a house
Sure.
full of CrossFitters and they eat about 1,000 bananas a week. Okay. So I wish I lived in Hawaii so I could just buy my bananas at the farmer's market. But sometimes I have to go to a store or get like bananas delivered. And that's just, but at least I know,
Yeah,
no one's telling me, oh, a California farmer grew this banana,
right.
so I know where it's coming from. But, I
Yeah,
think that's just the truth, like keeping in mind that the customers deserve the truth, treat them with respect and that they're smart, tell them what's going on. Constant education is helpful. I think we're constantly doing that. I mean, we had a post recently with a farmer who has a cross certification, which is something I don't know how common that is. I mean, you can do it in California, but a farmer can go through the process of cross certifying with another California farm. They can only do it with up to two additional farms, and they can bring produce to the market from a different farm. So they didn't grow it, but they have to have it in a separate part of their booth. They
the
can't,
sign that
the sign
identifies the farmer.
the sign has to say that it's from a different farm, and they can't buy it from the farm and then resell it at the market. They have to come and enter into a partnership where they're just getting that produce from the farm. They're selling it and then they're giving the profit to the other farmer. And it's for farmers who maybe don't have the bandwidth to come to a farmer's market. They don't have staff to come stand in the booth. And so it is helping another small family farm. And it's done in this really transparent way where we're saying, okay, this farm is growing all of this stuff. You can only have a small percentage of produce offered at the market that comes from a different farm. You can only cross certify with certain farms.
It's complicated.
It's very complicated. Not a lot of farmers do it. I mean, there's only like two or three of my farms
I
that
mean, I
even
wish it
have
was
it.
less complicated because there are a
Yeah,
lot of really small farmers that maybe don't produce enough to have their own booth, but they are local. Maybe they're this farmer's neighbor. It would be a good idea if he could bring it with a little bit less complication. But again, that's part of the process of making sure that things are verified and that it is producers.
exactly. So, I mean, but I just think being transparent about it and then being able to offer product at the market that maybe wouldn't come to the market because that small farm grows a really particular produce item, but they don't have bandwidth to come to a farmer's market. So then the general public isn't able to purchase it. So it's a benefit all around and it keeps that farmer farming. It helps the farmer that can bring in extra produce, kind of fill their table out, maybe if they have a low season with what they're growing. I mean, it's just like it's a benefit all around, but I think just misconception about it and people assuming it's a resale situation. But we try to just do, and we had someone comment on one of our posts, and our social media manager was really great. And I kind of jumped in there too, just explaining the cross certification process. And it was great. And then it was nice. Like a couple weeks later, we took our whole team to the county ag department training that they have, I think annually ish. But they had a whole section on cross certification. And so we were able to post some additional education about that just for people who maybe didn't realize that or they're not shopping from farms that have a cross cert. So it was just nice. It was a nice way to educate people that kind of stemmed out of a, you know, snobby comment on
Right.
social media.
Yeah. Well, and that's
Yeah,
the thing. These things do provide opportunities. So when there are snarky stories or inaccurate stories that are being told about farmers markets, it is an opportunity to educate and to come in, maybe avoid a real salty reply, but come in with an educational reply to some of these things. And it gives us the chance to tell our real story.
yeah, exactly. And some people don't want to hear it and they're not going to listen to your explanation. And at some point, you just have to go, okay, this person is not willing to listen to any facts or any explanation. You just have to let it go.
But someone else who's reading that conversation, even if the original poster doesn't change their mind in any way or absorb what you're offering, somebody else who's watching that conversation, maybe not even commenting, but just watching it flow, they might learn something. They may retain something. They may go out and search for more information that's going to help them really understand what we do.
Yep. Lots of ways to navigate that. As in so many parts of life, it's not what you do or don't do that upsets people. It's not aligning expectations with reality. The more we let people know what farmers markets are and aren't, the more we can meet farmers and shoppers' expectations and increase the number of raving fans that will help us tell our stories. Because the true story of local farmers bringing the freshest food to their communities is definitely one worth sharing.
Today's episode of Tent Talk is supported by Manage My Market, an online platform helping markets manage applications, invoicing, permit tracking, and more. Their reports help simplify your accounting and make reconciliation easier, and their support of Tent Talk, the Intense Conference, and our online communities helps us provide the resources you need. For more information on how to consolidate all your market management tasks in one place, Click the Manage My Market logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com. And don't forget, National Farmers Market Week starts this Sunday, August 2nd, and runs for the following week. Use this opportunity to get out there and tell your story.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today. Please leave us a review on your podcast app or wherever you listen to Tent Talk. Let us and others know how you're enjoying the podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Tent Talk. Connect with fellow farmers market folks in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community, and follow us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. Find online education and other resources at farmersmarketpros.com. Tent Talk is brought to you by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Tent Talk is hosted by Kat Fields-White and Bridget Myers and produced by Leandra Hayes, with original music by David Mead. Tune in for another great episode.